Captain Lee Hanna stood at the window of the space station, hidden deep in the asteroid field. For 300 years, this rocky maze had been home to the last free humans in the galaxy. Outside, chunks of stone and metal drifted silently through space, keeping their secrets safe from the alien eyes that ruled everything else. She touched the communication device in her ear and listened to the quiet voices of her crew. Lieutenant Kim Min-ho sat at his control panel, watching green lights blink on his screen. Each light meant another human ship was ready for battle. Commander Park Jisoo was checking the weapons on their biggest ship, the Defiance. These people had never seen Earth, but they carried its memory in their hearts. "The fleet is ready, Captain," Min-ho said without looking up from his controls. His fingers moved quickly over the buttons, talking to ships scattered throughout the asteroid field. Some were hidden inside hollow rocks. Others floated in the dark spaces between the asteroids, invisible to anyone who might come looking. Hannah nodded and walked to the center of the room. The bridge was small, but filled with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. It looked strange because it mixed human ideas with alien machines they had stolen or found over the centuries. Nothing matched. But everything worked perfectly together. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps, ship locations, and enemy patrol routes. Dr. Yang Suman had spent 40 years building the power systems that made their ships faster and stronger than anything the aliens had. Admiral Choi Sungmin had created ways to hide their ships, so well that alien sensors could not find them even when they were close enough to touch. 300 years ago, the Hegemony Coalition had come to Earth with their massive war fleets. They were a group of alien races who believed they were better than everyone else in the galaxy. They had conquered world after world, making slaves of entire civilizations or destroying them completely if they refused to obey. Earth had fought back, but human weapons were too weak and their ships too few. The aliens thought they had won easily. They believed all humans were dead or broken into slaves working in their mines and factories. The hegemony moved on to conquer other worlds, forgetting about the small blue planet that had dared to resist them, but they had been wrong. Some humans had escaped during the invasion. They had taken their families and whatever ships they could find, running to the empty spaces between the stars. They had hidden in asteroid fields on dead planets and in the dark corners of space, where no one else wanted to go. For 3 centuries, these hidden humans had lived in secret. They had children who grew up knowing they must stay quiet and hidden. They had built new ships using parts from wrecked alien vessels. They had learned alien languages and studied alien technology, always preparing for the day they would fight back. The hegemony had grown lazy during this time. Their patrols were slow and careless because no one had challenged them for so long. They ruled over hundreds of worlds where billions of creatures lived in fear. The aliens had forgotten that free people never stop wanting to be free. Hannah looked around at her crew. These men and women had been born in the darkness between stars, but they carried the spirit of Earth in their blood. They knew stories of blue skies and green forests, of oceans and mountains they had never seen. They dreamed of a world they would probably never visit, but they were ready to die for it. "Open communications to all ships," Hannah ordered. Her voice was calm but strong. Every person on every hidden ship in the asteroid field could hear her now. 8. "Today is the day we have prepared for since our grandparents fled from Earth," she said. "For 300 years we have lived in shadows while the galaxy forgot we existed. The aliens think we are dust. They think we are broken. They think we are gone forever." She paused and looked out at the asteroid field where dozens of human ships were beginning to move. Their engines glowed like new stars being born. "They are wrong," Hannah continued. "We are the children of Earth, and we have never stopped fighting. We have grown strong in the darkness. We have learned from our enemies. We have built ships they cannot imagine and weapons they cannot understand." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for battle. They had practiced this moment thousands of times, but now it was real. After 3 centuries of hiding, humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy again. "Signal all ships," Hannah commanded. "Today we remind the galaxy that humanity endures. Today we show them that free people cannot be destroyed. Today we begin to take back what was stolen from us." Lieutenant Kim Min-ho pressed a button, and suddenly the asteroid field came alive with light. Ship after ship appeared from their hiding places, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The fleet that emerged was like nothing the galaxy had seen before. Human determination mixed with alien technology, created by people who had never forgotten their home. Admiral Kess sat in his command chair aboard the giant warship Supremacy, reading reports on his electronic tablet. His green scales moved slightly as he breathed, showing his boredom with another ordinary day. The reptilian alien had been doing the same job for 20 years, flying from planet to planet, collecting taxes and resources from the creatures the hegemony had conquered long ago. Today, he was visiting Kepler-4 for to be, mining world where humans used to live before the Great War. Now, it was filled with different alien workers who dug precious metals from the ground and sent them to the hegemony's home worlds. The work was hard and dangerous, but no one complained anymore. Those who had complained were dead, others successful. "Collection, Admiral," said his assistant, a thin blue alien with 4 arms. "The miners have filled our cargo ships with enough rare metals to keep the core worlds happy for months." Kess nodded without interest. His massive warship floated through space surrounded by 12 smaller ships, all of them painted in the red and gold colors of the hegemony fleet. These ships were supposed to be the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. For 3 centuries, no one had been able to fight them and win. The bridge was filled with different types of aliens, all working together because the hegemony had forced their worlds to join the Empire. There were tall gray beings with large black eyes, short furry creatures with sharp teeth, and others that looked like walking rocks. They had all learned to fear and obey the hegemony's power. Admiral called out the sensor operator, a nervous creature with tentacles instead of arms. "I am detecting ships approaching our position, but the computer says they are compliance vessels coming to report their monthly quotas." Kess barely looked up from his reports. Compliance vessels were small, weak ships that carried messages and supplies between hegemony outposts. They were no threat to anyone. "Wait," the sensor operator said, his voice becoming worried. "These energy signatures are strange. I have never seen readings like this before." "The computer cannot identify what type of ships these are." Now Kess was paying attention. He stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewing screen at the front of the bridge. Space looked empty except for stars and the distant glow of the mining planet below them. Then something impossible happened. Ships appeared out of nowhere, as if they had been invisible and suddenly decided to show themselves. But these were not the small, weak vessels that usually approached hegemony fleets. These ships were sleek and dangerous looking, sharp angles and strange designs that mixed different types of technology. "Impossible," Kess whispered, his scales turning darker with fear. "Humans have been extinct for 300 years. We destroyed their home world and scattered their people across the galaxy as slaves." The ships on the screen did not look like anything in the hegemony's records. They were clearly built by someone who understood both human engineering and alien technology. Their hulls gleamed with armor that seemed to bend light around it. And energy readings showed power sources stronger than anything the hegemony used. Suddenly, a voice came through the communication system. It spoke in the old human language that Kess remembered from historical records, but it was being translated by the ship's computer so everyone could understand. "This is Captain Lee Hanna of the Human Resistance Fleet," the voice said calmly. "You are trespassing in liberated space. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your ships from this system, or we will remove you by force." The bridge fell silent. Every alien on Kess's ship stared at the communication system, as if it had just told them the impossible. Humans were supposed to be gone. They were supposed to be weak, broken creatures who worked in mines and factories until they died. They were not supposed to have fleets of advanced warships. Kess felt his blood turn cold, but his pride would not let him show fear. In front of his crew, he had spent his entire career believing that the hegemony was invincible, that their technology and organization made them superior to every other species in the galaxy. "Weapons systems. Target those ships immediately," he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "They are pretending to be humans to frighten us, but no extinct species can threaten the might of the hegemony. Destroy them all." His weapons officer, a creature with 6 arms and red skin, began pressing buttons to charge the ship's powerful laser cannons. The escort ships around the Supremacy also began preparing to fire. Kes was confident that his fleet's superior firepower would end this strange encounter quickly, but the human ships did not wait to be attacked. As soon as Kes gave his order, they began to move in ways that made no sense. They twisted through space like dancers, avoiding the hegemony's weapons fire while returning attacks that cut through alien shields as if they were made of paper. Lieutenant Kim Minho's voice could be heard, coordinating small fighter ships that appeared from nowhere, while Commander Park Jisoo led the larger vessels in a assault that showed planning and skill the aliens had never seen before. The humans fought like they had been preparing for this battle for centuries, which was exactly what they had been doing. In 7 minutes, it was over. 11 hegemony ships were destroyed or drifting helplessly in space. Only Kes's flagship remained badly damaged and surrounded by human vessels that could have finished it easily. The news traveled faster than any spaceship could fly. In secret meeting places across the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives under hegemony rule heard something they thought was impossible. Humans had returned, and they had won a battle against the mighty alien empire. On the mining world of Zarian 7, a group of tall, thin creatures with blue skin stopped their work deep underground. They had been digging rare crystals for the hegemony for over a century, working 16 hours every day until their bodies broke down. One of the older miners, his back bent from years of heavy labor, whispered to the others, "Is it true? Did someone really defeat a hegemony fleet?" he asked quietly, looking around to make sure no guards were listening. A younger worker nodded. The message came through the old communication networks. Ships that looked human destroyed 11 hegemony warships in the Kepler system. The admiral barely escaped with his life. The older miner's eyes filled with tears. He had never heard of humans before, but the idea that anyone, could fight back against their oppressors filled him with a feeling he had forgotten existed. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Factory workers who had never seen sunlight, farmers forced to grow food only for alien masters, and scientists whose discoveries were stolen by the hegemony all heard the same amazing news. For the first time in generations, resistance seemed possible. Captain Lee Hanna stood in the great meeting hall on Haven, a planet hidden so well that the hegemony had never found it. The room was filled with representatives from oppressed species across the galaxy. Some had traveled for months to reach this secret gathering, risking their lives to attend. The hall itself was built inside a mountain, its walls carved from black stone that sparkled with tiny crystals. A clear dome at the top showed the stars. Above, reminding everyone of the vast galaxy they hoped to free, chairs and benches of different sizes filled the space. Made to accommodate beings of many different shapes and sizes, Elder Zith sat in the front row, his body made of living crystal that changed colors as he moved. His people, the Altarians, had been enslaved for 8 generations, forced to use their natural ability to find precious minerals for the hegemony's benefit. Behind him sat representatives of the vegan trade union, beings who looked like large cats with opposable thumbs. They had once been proud merchants, but the hegemony had taken over their trade routes and made them work as servants. General Kim Tae-young stood near the back of the room, watching everyone carefully. His special forces had spent decades learning alien languages, studying alien cultures, and placing agents throughout hegemony space. These brave humans had lived dangerous double lives, pretending to be loyal citizens while secretly gathering information and helping other species plan for this day. "Friends," Hannah began, her voice carrying clearly through the large hall. "For 300 years, the hegemony has told you that resistance is useless. They have said that their power is absolute, that no one can stand against them. They have used fear and division to keep you apart, making each species believe they were alone in their suffering." She paused and looked around the room at faces that represented dozens of different worlds and cultures. Some had fur, others had scales. Some breathed the same air as humans, while others wore special breathing devices. But they all shared the same expression, a mixture of hope and determination that had been growing stronger since news of the human victory had spread. "They were wrong," Hannah continued. "The battle at Kepler proved that the hegemony can be beaten. More importantly, it proved that we are not alone. Across the galaxy, people like you have been waiting for this moment, preparing for the day when we could stand together against tyranny. Elder Zith stood up slowly, his crystal body catching the light from above. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Captain Hannah, my people have suffered for 8 generations under hegemony rule. We have dreamed of freedom, but we never believed it was possible. If humanity truly offers us alliance in this fight— Dr. Yang Suman stepped forward before Zith could finish. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes burned with intensity. For decades, she had worked to develop the technology that made human ships superior to hegemony vessels. Not alliance, she said firmly. Partnership. We have all suffered under the same boot. We have all lost loved ones to their cruelty. We stand together as equals, or we fall separately as slaves. The room erupted in voices as beings who had been taught to distrust each other began to realize they shared the same goals. The hegemony had always used a strategy of divide and conquer, telling each species that the others were their enemies. They had encouraged conflicts between different groups to prevent them from working together. Communications. Officer Lee Dong-wook moved to the center of the room, carrying a device that projected images into the air above everyone's heads. The images showed star maps with thousands of glowing dots scattered across dozens of systems. These are our agents, he announced. For 50 years, humans have been placing people inside hegemony institutions. We have teachers in their schools, workers in their factories, and even officers in their military. We know their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, we know that many of their own people are tired of the endless wars and oppression. The war began in ways that confused every hegemony military leader. For 3 centuries, they had fought the same way, massive fleets moving in straight lines, overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and firepower. Every species they had conquered had tried to fight back using similar tactics. And every species had failed. But the humans and their new allies fought differently. In the Proxima system, Commander Park Ji-soo stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the enemy fleet approach. The hegemony's 9th fleet was impressive, 30 large warships moving in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready to destroy anything in their path. Admiral Vorth, the hegemony commander, had won dozens of battles using the same strategy. They outnumber us 2-1, reported Lieutenant Song Min-jae from his position at the sensor station. Around them, the combined human and Altarian fleet looked small compared to the approaching enemy. Numbers don't matter if you can't hit your target, Park, Jisoo replied calmly. She opened communication channels to all the ships in her fleet. All vessels, begin scatter pattern 7. Remember, trust your partners and adapt to the situation. What happened next made no sense to the hegemony observers. Instead of forming neat battle lines like proper military forces, the human and Altarian ships spread apart in what looked like random directions. Some moved up, others down, and a few seemed to be flying directly away from the battle. Admiral Vorth watched from his command ship, his tentacles twitching with confusion. What are they doing? This is not how space battles are fought. Have no formation, no central command structure. They will be easy targets. But when the hegemony ships began firing, they discovered that hitting scattered, fast-moving targets was much harder than shooting at organized formations. The human ships twisted and turned through space like fish swimming through water, while the crystalline Altarian vessels seemed to dance between laser beams as if they knew exactly where each shot would go. Then the counterattack began. Fusion. Torpedoes launched from human ships that were kilometers apart, but they all arrived at the same hegemony vessel at exactly the same moment. The combined explosions tore through shields that were designed to stop single attacks, not coordinated. Strikes from multiple directions. How are they doing this? Admiral Vorth screamed as his fleet began taking heavy damage. They have no command ship giving orders. How do they coordinate such precise attacks? His communication officer, a nervous creature with large ears, studied the enemy transmissions. Sir, they are barely using radio communications at all. The crystal ships seem to be sharing information instantly, and the human vessels are making decisions on their own. This was something completely new in galactic warfare. The hegemony had always fought using strict chains of command. Every ship waited for orders from above before doing anything. Captains were not allowed to make decisions without permission from admirals. And admirals had to follow plans made by generals who were far from the battle. But the humans and Altarians trusted each other to make good decisions. Human captains saw opportunities and took them immediately, knowing their allies would adapt and support them. Altarian crystal ships shared information instantly through their natural mental connections, giving everyone perfect knowledge of the battlefield situation. The result was chaos. From the hegemony's perspective, but it was organized chaos that destroyed their fleet in less than an hour. News of the victory spread quickly, and soon rebellions were breaking out on worlds that had been quiet for centuries. On Vega Prime, General Kim Tae-young led ground forces made up of humans and local aliens who had joined the resistance. They used the same flexible tactics that worked in space, appearing where the enemy least expected them, and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Captain O'Hyjin commanded naval operations in the Centauri cluster, where her mixed fleets liberated 3 star systems in a single month. Each victory brought more species into the resistance. As beings who had given up hope began to believe that freedom was possible, Dr. Yang Sumin's teams worked day and night to share human technology with their new allies. Unlike the hegemony, which kept its best weapons secret from its own member species, the humans gave away their most advanced designs freely. Altarian ships began using human fusion cores, while human vessels incorporated crystal communication systems that made their coordination even better. Communications Officer Lee Dong-wook broadcast messages of hope and liberation across the galaxy using networks that the hegemony thought were secure. His broadcasts reached factory workers, farmers, miners, and soldiers, telling them that resistance was not only possible, but successful. The hegemony leaders, safe in their palaces on the core worlds, watched their empire shrink with growing panic. Species that had been loyal out of fear began to question why they supported an empire that brought them nothing but war and suffering. Some hegemony member worlds declared neutrality, refusing to send more ships or soldiers to fight the growing rebellion. Within 2 years, the mighty empire had lost 1/3 of its territory. Worlds that had paid tribute for centuries stopped sending resources. Trade routes that had enriched the core worlds were controlled by resistance forces. The hegemony's own citizens began to wonder if their leaders were as invincible as they claimed. The tyrants who had ruled the galaxy for so long were learning a hard lesson. An empire built on fear and oppression could not stand against people who were willing to fight for freedom and trusted each other enough to work together. The massive fleet gathered in the darkness of space above Dominion Prime, the hegemony's capital world. Ships from 47 different worlds floated together in formations that would have been impossible just 5 years earlier. Human vessels with their sleek hybrid designs flew alongside crystalline Altarian ships that sparkled like jewels. Vegan trader ships, now converted into weapons platforms, moved next to the organic-looking vessels of the plant-like dendrons and the geometric craft of the mathematical proxians. Admiral Lee Hanna stood on the bridge of the Rising Earth, humanity's newest and most powerful ship. The title of Admiral had not been given to her by human commanders, but voted to her by representatives of all the allied species. Around her stood beings she had once only read about in old Earth history books. Creatures with scales, fur, crystal skin, and forms that seemed to shift like living liquid. "Admiral," said Captain Kim Jae-won from the communication station. "All fleet commanders report ready for the final assault." Hannah looked out at the planet below them. Dominion Prime was a world of towering metal cities and floating palaces where the hegemony's leaders had lived in luxury for centuries while billions of beings across the galaxy suffered under their rule. Massive defense platforms surrounded the planet like a metal ring, each one capable of destroying entire fleets with its weapons. "Open communications to all ships," Hannah ordered. Her voice would now reach over 3,000 vessels, carrying crews from species that had been enemies just years before. "Today we end 3 centuries of tyranny. Today we prove that freedom is stronger than fear, that unity is more powerful than oppression. The hegemony's remaining forces knew this was their last stand. Their Supreme Council had recalled every available ship to defend their homeworld, creating the largest military force in galactic history. Fortress ships the size of small moons emerged from behind the planet, hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The hegemony fought with the desperate fury of those who knew their time was ending. Their planet-killer weapons fired beams of energy that could destroy a dozen ships with a single shot, while clouds of fighter craft swarmed out like angry insects. But the Allied fleet fought with something the hegemony had never understood: perfect cooperation born from mutual respect. Altarian crystal ships shared battlefield information instantly through their mental connections, giving every Allied vessel complete knowledge of enemy movements. Human ships used this information to perform impossible maneuvers, appearing where the enemy least expected them and vanishing before return fire could find them. The vegan traders, whose ancestors had been peaceful merchants, used their knowledge of cargo handling to coordinate supply lines that kept the fleet fighting at peak efficiency. The Dendron plant beings contributed ships that could repair battle damage while still in combat, their living hulls growing new armor to replace what had been destroyed. Commander Park Jisoo led a squadron of mixed vessels in a direct assault on the largest fortress ship, while Captain Oh Hyzine coordinated fighter operations that confused and overwhelmed the enemy's defense systems. Every species contributed something unique to the battle, creating a combined force that was far more than the sum of its parts. On the planet's surface, General Kim Tae-young led ground forces in an assault on the capital city. The hegemony's defenses had been designed to stop traditional invasions, massive armies moving in predictable patterns. But the Allied ground forces used the same flexible tactics that had won the space battles, appearing simultaneously at dozens of locations and adapting their plans moment by moment. The planet's defense grid, which had never been breached in 3 centuries, began to fail as Allied forces struck at weak points the hegemony had never imagined anyone would find. Communication towers fell, power stations were captured, and the great government buildings that had symbolized alien oppression were surrounded by beings they had once enslaved. As the battle raged above and below, something remarkable happened in the hegemony's command centers. Officers who had spent their lives believing in their empires' superiority began to question whether a cause that inspired such unified resistance could truly be wrong. Some abandoned their posts while others actively helped the Allied forces. By providing information about defense systems and troop locations, the end came not with a massive explosion, but with a simple communication from the hegemony's Supreme Council. The ruling body that had controlled the galaxy for centuries transmitted a message of unconditional surrender, asking only that their people be treated with mercy. What happened next surprised everyone, including many of the Allied leaders. Instead of demanding executions or revenge, the representatives of the freed worlds offered something the hegemony had never given to their victims: forgiveness and a chance to start over. In the ruins of the Great Throne Room, where hegemony emperors had once decided the fate of entire species, Admiral Lee Hanna stood surrounded by beings from across the galaxy. The crystal dome above them had been shattered during the battle, letting in starlight from the cosmos beyond. "We did not fight this war to become the new oppressors," she said to the gathered representatives. "We fought to prove that every thinking being deserves dignity, freedom, and the right to choose their own path among the stars." The Galactic Federation that emerged from the ashes of the hegemony was built on principles that seemed simple but had proven revolutionary: mutual respect, shared prosperity, and the radical idea that differences in appearance, culture, and biology were sources of strength rather than reasons for conflict.